Uninvited. Living loved when you feel less than, left out, and lonely. Written by Lysa TerKeurst. What if rejection weren't a negative verdict on who you are, but just information about compatibility and timing? Many people experience rejection as an identity crisis. They learned early on that being left out meant there was something wrong with them. This childhood programming creates adults who avoid risks, people please, and feel devastated by every exclusion, disappointment, or failure. But this exhausting cycle keeps you small and disconnected from your true potential, and you can rewrite this story. The same sensitivity that causes rejection pain can become your greatest strength when you learn to work with it instead of against it. This summary dives deep into 3 key insights that will transform your relationship with rejection, from discovering your inherent worth to creating healthy limits and choosing relationships that energize you. These simple shifts, practiced consistently, build the emotional resilience that turns rejection from an enemy into an ally. Number 1. The universal problem. Everyone experiences rejection at some point in their lives. That's a fundamental part of being human. But some people seem to take rejection in their stride, while others have a much more difficult time. Rejection sensitivity often begins in childhood, and it follows a predictable pattern. Young brains interpret early experiences, being left out or criticized or ignored, as messages about self-worth. The child who felt unseen grows into an adult who assumes others will overlook them too. These interpretations become the lens through which you view every future interaction or opportunity. This childhood programming runs so deep that you may not recognize how it shapes your daily choices. For Sarah, it meant that, at 35 and very successful, she was devastated at a rejected business proposal. For her, any professional disappointment triggers something much older and deeper. She finds herself scrolling through social media at midnight, comparing her life to others, feeling a familiar ache of not being good enough. Consider 8-year-old Marcus sitting alone at the lunch table, watching his classmates laugh together while he sits alone. When his teacher walks by but says nothing, Marcus decides that being left out is simply what happens to him. 20 years later, he sits silently in boardroom meetings, his brilliant ideas trapped behind the fear that no one wants to hear them. Then there is Emma, who performed in every school play to empty seats because her parents were always working late. She learned early that her achievements meant little to the people who mattered most. Now, she works 80-hour weeks, chasing approval from a boss who barely acknowledges her existence, repeating the same painful cycle. These patterns persist because your brain developed them as protection. Staying small meant avoiding bigger hurts. Staying quiet prevented criticism. Staying busy earned occasional praise. These strategies worked when you were young and powerless, but now they trap you in cycles that block the very acceptance you seek. When rejection wounds remain unhealed, they create a constant state of emotional vigilance. You check your phone obsessively after sending texts. You avoid applying for opportunities you want because you cannot bear another no. You might even push people away first, controlling the rejection before it controls you. The cost extends far beyond missed chances. Unprocessed rejection shapes your identity and limits how much love you believe you deserve. But understanding this pattern is the first step toward breaking free from it. The same sensitivity that causes you pain can become a source of strength when you learn to work with it, rather than against it. Number 2. Belonging to yourself. The most powerful antidote to rejection sensitivity is learning to belong to yourself first. This means developing an unshakable sense of your own worth that exists independently of what others think or do. When you belong to yourself, rejection becomes information rather than identity. It tells you about compatibility or timing, not about your fundamental value as a person. True self-belonging requires you to become your own safe haven. Instead of searching for validation in your interactions, you learn to provide that security for yourself. This shift changes everything about how you move through the world. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for you, and you start trusting your own voice above the chorus of outside opinions. Consider Haruto, who spent years saying yes to every social invitation, terrified of missing out or disappointing anyone. He attended parties where he felt invisible and joined committees that drained his energy. Then, he began practicing what it meant to honor his own preferences. He started declining invitations that felt heavy rather than exciting. At first, the guilt was overwhelming, but gradually, he noticed something remarkable happening. The relationships that remained grew deeper. People began seeking his opinion precisely because they knew he would be honest rather than agreeable. Miriam always measured her worth through her productivity at work. She stayed late every night, volunteered for extra projects, and checked emails during family dinners. Her identity was completely wrapped up in being indispensable to her boss. When she began learning to separate her worth from her output, she discovered she could say no to non-essential tasks without the world falling apart. Her boss actually respected her more when she became selective about her commitments. Her family appreciated having her full attention too. Building self-belonging happens through small, daily choices. It means pausing before you speak to ask whether your words reflect your true thoughts rather than your desire to please. It means choosing clothes that make you feel confident instead of wearing what you think others might expect. It means honoring your need for rest even when others are busy, and pursuing interests that genuinely fascinate you. It means taking the time to get to know yourself and support your own well-being. When you truly belong to yourself first, rejection loses its power to define you. You can hear no without hearing that you are not enough. You can face disappointment without questioning your worth. Even better, this inner security is the foundation from which all healthy relationships grow. Number 3. Building healthy boundaries. Boundaries have become a buzzword but are widely misunderstood. They're not walls built to keep people out. They are clear guidelines that protect your emotional and mental well-being while allowing healthy connections to flourish. Most people misunderstand boundaries as selfish or harsh, but the opposite is true. Healthy boundaries create the safety that makes authentic relationships possible. When you have clear limits, you can engage with others from a place of choice instead of obligation or fear. The confusion around boundaries often stems from experiences in childhood, when saying no was discouraged or punished. You learned that keeping others happy was more important than honoring your own needs. This programming makes boundaries feel dangerous, as if setting limits will result in abandonment. But boundaries actually attract the right people, while filtering out those who would take advantage of your kindness. Boundaries work in two directions. They protect you from what drains or harms you, and they preserve your energy for what truly matters. Think of them like the fence around a garden. The fence keeps out what would destroy the plants, creating a safe space for growth. Without boundaries, your emotional garden becomes overrun with weeds, leaving no room for the relationships and activities that bring you joy. Consider Shoban, who found herself constantly overwhelmed by requests from family members. Her siblings called at all hours asking for money, childcare, or emotional support. She never said no because she feared being labeled selfish. Her own marriage and children suffered as she poured all her energy into fixing everyone else's problems. When she finally learned to set boundaries, she started with small steps. She turned off her phone during family dinners. She told her siblings they needed to schedule calls in advance. She stopped lending money without real repayment plans. The initial pushback was intense, but over time, her relationships became more balanced. Her siblings learned to solve their own problems, and they respected her for having clear limits. Building your own boundaries requires practice and patience with yourself. Start by identifying where you feel drained or resentful. These emotions are signals that a boundary is needed. Notice the situations in which you say yes but feel heavy inside, or consistently give more than you receive. Practice saying no without elaborate explanations. A simple statement works better than a long justification that invites argument. Try things like, "That doesn't work for me," or "I'm not available for that." You don't need to provide reasons for others to approve of. Your no is complete by itself. Boundaries transform rejection from something you fear into something you can navigate with confidence. When you know your limits and communicate them clearly, you create space for connections based on mutual respect rather than one-sided giving. Number 4, find your safe people. Not everyone deserves access to your heart. While you cannot control who accepts or rejects you, you can choose who gets to influence how you feel about yourself. Safe people are those who celebrate your growth and don't exploit your vulnerabilities. They respect your boundaries instead of testing them. Most importantly, they remain consistent in their care, whether you succeed or struggle. Safe people reveal themselves through their responses to your authentic self. When you share something personal, do they listen without trying to fix or judge? When you set a boundary, do they respect it even if they feel disappointed? When you succeed, are they genuinely happy rather than competitive or dismissive? These responses tell you everything about whether someone is safe for your emotional investment. The quality of your relationships matters far more than the quantity. Many people who struggle with rejection surround themselves with surface-level connections that provide temporary validation, but no real support. They collect followers, acquaintances, and people-pleasers while remaining lonely at their core. Safe people offer something different: presence over performance, depth over breadth, consistency over intensity. Consider Ben, who realized his friend group thrived on drama and gossip. Every gathering involved analyzing someone's problems or mistakes. He noticed he felt anxious before gatherings and depleted afterwards. When he began investing in friendships with people who focused on growth and positive goals, his entire mindset shifted. He discovered that healthy relationships energize rather than drain you. Or Amara, who spent years trying to win over colleagues who undermined her contributions in meetings. She worked harder to prove herself worthy of their approval, never recognizing that their behavior revealed their character, not her value. When she shifted her energy toward the few co-workers who actually supported her ideas and celebrated her successes, her confidence grew. She stopped wasting time trying to convert critics into cheerleaders and started nurturing relationships with people who already saw her worth. Identifying safe people requires honest assessment of how you feel after spending time with someone. Do you feel seen and accepted, Or are you performing to earn their approval? Do conversations flow naturally, or are you carefully monitoring your words? Do they remember details about your life that matter to you, or do they consistently make everything about themselves? Building a circle of safe people takes time and intentional choice. Start by being a safe person yourself. Practice the qualities you seek. Listen without agenda. Celebrate others genuinely, and honor the trust people place in you. Safe people attract other safe people because they recognize the same values in each other. Your safe people become your foundation for navigating rejection with resilience. When you know you have people who see your true worth, the opinions of those who do not matter fade into the background.
Number 5. Resilience Action Plan.
Healing rejection sensitivity happens through consistent small actions, not dramatic transformations. Belonging to yourself, building boundaries, and finding your safe people work together to create a foundation of emotional security. But understanding these concepts means nothing without putting them into practice in your daily life. Your relationship with rejection changes when you stop seeing it as a verdict on your worth and start viewing it as useful information. Rejection tells you about compatibility, timing, capacity, or preference. It rarely tells you anything meaningful about your fundamental value as a person. This shift in perspective takes practice, but it becomes automatic over time. Start building self-belonging today by checking in with yourself before making decisions. When someone asks you to do something, pause and notice your internal response. Does the request feel energizing or draining? Do you feel excitement or obligation? This simple practice helps you honor your real preferences instead of defaulting to people-pleasing. Create boundaries around your time by scheduling non-negotiable periods for rest, reflection, or activities that bring you joy. Treat these appointments as seriously as you would any professional commitment, and assess your current relationships with honesty. Notice who consistently makes you feel energized after spending time together. Begin investing more energy in relationships that feel mutual and supportive, and reduce the time spent with people who leave you feeling depleted or criticized.
Develop a daily practice of self-compassion.
When you face disappointment or rejection, speak to yourself the way you would speak to a good friend in the same situation. Replace harsh self-criticism with gentle understanding. Remember that struggling does not make you weak or broken. To notice your own rejection patterns, pay attention to your thoughts after social interactions. Are you replaying conversations looking for signs of rejection? Are you interpreting neutral responses as negative? Challenge these patterns by asking yourself what evidence you have for your interpretations. Often you will find your fears are based on assumptions rather than facts. Most importantly, remember that building emotional resilience is an ongoing process, not a destination. Some days will feel easier than others. Progress is not linear, and setbacks are normal parts of growth. Be patient with yourself as you develop these new patterns of thinking and responding. Each small step forward builds the foundation for resilience.
Conclusion. In this summary to Uninvited by Lysa TerKeurst, you've learned that rejection sensitivity often begins in childhood, when young brains interpret being left out or criticized as messages about fundamental worth. The path to emotional freedom starts with belonging to yourself first, developing an unshakable sense of value that exists independently of others' opinions. Building healthy boundaries protects your energy and creates space for authentic connections based on mutual respect rather than one-sided giving.
Surrounding yourself with safe people who celebrate your growth and respect your limits provides the foundation for navigating rejection with confidence. When you practice these 3 solutions consistently, rejection transforms from a verdict on your identity into useful information about compatibility and timing, freeing you to live authentically and pursue what truly matters to you. Okay, that's it for this summary. We hope you enjoyed it. Smash that like button and subscribe for upcoming summaries. Thank you.